Howdy partners, prior warning, this could be an extremely boring video, but I'll just crack on and see what comes out, because often when I go out on a bike ride I use that time to think things through myself, so it's not all thought through really. Yeah, the saying bro romance, basically it's when you admire somebody, a man of the same sex, a Frau romance as well, I don't know, but somebody you admire in the world, and I've had a few bromances, and just people you think are coming out with some interesting thoughts. And one guy I've been looking at a lot recently is Elon Musk, and interesting guy. I've been watching quite a lot about what he's got to say, and I'm also a big fan of Iain M. Banks, and he does a science fiction series about humans very, very far into the future, and this society is called the culture. And Elon Musk is a big fan from this guy, and he's the CEO of SpaceX and Tesla cars and Sun City, and the big barges where the rockets land have got kind of funny names, like Of Course I Still Love You, and these names of the landing barges and launch pads are taken directly from Iain M. Banks' books. So there's one connection anyway. And I was listening to him talking about something called first principle thinking, and not thinking wrong-headed thoughts. And that could sound really smug, but it's kind of a model that I've personally been thinking for a long time, and it's just nice to see someone who's taken it 1,000 stages further. Try and give an example of my own about first principle thinking. It's about looking at things in its entirety, not just the outside skin or the consequence of an action, but trying to look at it from as many different angles as possible, and then computing in your head a true picture of what you're thinking about, seeing, what you're looking at. And to use a probably very stupid analogy, I'll just try and basically bring it down to cooking a pan of sausages. Now, you could cook a pan of sausages, and you could go online and read how to do it online, and it'll say warm up the pan so the hot oil doesn't smoke till it's not smoking, and put your sausages and cook them, and then you're finished. But just cooking a pan of sausages, you've got to think about things like, first of all, why are you cooking the sausages? The first reason is they taste better cooked and kill off any bacteria. It's more of a nice feeling in your mouth to eat some warm food than it is to eat some cold food. And just cooking that pan of sausages, you let your mind wander a bit and think about it, and think about the physics of it, think about the molecules of water in the sausages being bombarded and agitated by the gas flame, heating up the molecules in the sausage and softening it, smashing away these little bonds in the sausage. And you cook it really, really slow. So there's more chemical reactions happening on the outside of the sausage. The sausage becomes slowly brown and the sausage becomes caramelized, and in the process of caramelizing, the outer surface of the sausage becomes slightly sweet, more tactile, mouth-friendly texture. So you've got to be thinking about all these things just when you're cooking your sausages. And if you're thinking about all these things, then your sausages are going to turn out exactly how you want them, rather than just going at it blind and not really knowing what you're doing and just turning on the pan, and you end up with a pan of sausages that are black on the outside and burnt in the middle, and they don't taste good. And that can be taken with anything really. Driving your car, how you drive your car, you can drive it economically, try not ever to use the brakes, do defensive driving, keep the speed the same, make it an art form. Think about all the cogs in your engine and your gearbox and saving wear and tear. That's how you can drive your car, with Bewusstsein, which in German means consciously doing it, consciously thinking about what you're doing and having reasons for doing things, not just randomly doing something because that's already in the software that you've got in your mind, but actually proactive thinking about what you're doing all the time. Building something out of wood, you look at a piece of wood and you're thinking about leverage and how the screw's going to go in, or where the grain is. All these parameters that you've got to keep in your head. Yeah, everything you do, always thinking all the time. And photography too, thinking about all the different parameters, the light, the colours, composure, the mood, the tone, and thinking about all these things all the time, because you're consciously thinking about it, it's going to go right, and you're not just having a guess about what you're doing. I suppose there's lots of words for this wrong-headed thinking, first principle thinking. Another way to describe it perhaps is a kind of mental hygiene, or consequential thinking, clean thinking. I like the way you think. And you see lots of examples of wrong-headed thinking. When you think about the Second World War and all the people who got slaughtered in the Second World War and the First World War, that's monumental wrong-headed thinking. And everything's gone wrong, and in the end everything's destroyed. But even small things, you see the plastic there on the street hanging in the trees, and you think, God, that's a disgrace, but you still buy all your crap in plastic bags. It's kind of light insanity in a way, an unclarity of thought. And I don't want to get political or anything, but this whole Brexit thing, refugees, that's all consequences of wrong thinking. Like destroying countries so people can't live there anymore, and then being surprised when all them people suddenly turn up on your doorstep. Instead of fighting the root cause of the problem, you just moan about the consequences of your wrong-headed thinking, or our wrong-headed thinking. And that's what I like about the Elon Musk way of thinking. He's got his Tesla company and solar energy, and it's one concept. For example, great areas of the desert are covered with solar panels, and each one of these gigafactories has a giant battery there to store the power, and that power will be used to transport, to power the cars. About sustainability. Sometimes when you watch a David Attenborough film or a nature film, and you see some gorillas in the jungle, and you watch them eating some fruit, and they seem to grab pieces of fruit and take a bite out of it and lose interest and drop it on the floor and get another piece of fruit. Or you see a cockatoo eating some fruit, and he has a nibble of it and it falls out of his beak on the floor, and you're thinking, why are they so messy and wasteful? Why can't they get one piece of fruit and eat every single bit of it, and then they won't have to eat so much, won't have to pick so much? That's where one of the examples of wrong-headed thinking is, and the use of plastic. These animals in the forest that do that, the stuff they throw away on the floor is not non-degradable rubbish. It falls on the floor and the ants will eat it, and then it will get turned into compost, and the fruit tree below afterwards will get even more fruit on it because they've been throwing bits of fruit around the roots to add nutrients to the soil. And we still have that guerrilla mindset. I think that's why people driving in cars go to McDonald's and buy the McDonald's burger or hamburger, and driving along, and they don't want to have the rubbish anymore, so they just throw it out the window, just like a gorilla does in the jungle. Except they're not just throwing out banana leaves out of the window, which wouldn't be a problem. They're throwing out plastic, which is a problem. But even though fundamentally throwing what you don't need on the floor's not really too bad. I'm not sure about this people picking up dog shit in plastic bags, because the dog shit's got no chance to biodegrade anymore. Yeah, you don't step in it as much, but you see little black plastic bags all over the place now full of dog shit, and who wants to pick them up and touch them, and it's just another item of toxic waste. Kind of wrong-headed thinking. Not joined up thinking. I suppose going through life without doing this kind of thinking, it's like going through life drunk on about half a bottle of whiskey or something, you know, just walking along and getting your kicks and that lot, and not caring about anything. It's selfish in a way, and I think we've got to start thinking about sobering up a little bit. You get this wrong-headedness, this false way of thinking, and I don't want to come across as some smug git who's saying that everything I say is right. And if you say something that you think's true and other people disbelieve it, you're going to get some flack. You're going to get comments and negative comments back at you, and that's also a kind of wrong-headedness, because then you end up having a pissing match with somebody, and that's not where you want to go. You didn't come there in the arena to have a fight with somebody. You came into the arena to put forward your ideas, and it's just not worth you wasting your time. If somebody's determined to think wrong-headedness way, it's just not worth your time to try and change their mind by entering into any kind of a discussion or argument or pissing contest. But this first principle thinking, you find that often the cleverest people have thought that way. Like Einstein, for example, the way he looked at time and gravity and mass and how it's all connected. He didn't look at it the normal way that how it was seen at early 19th century. He looked at it a completely different way, and that seems to be what happened in the Middle Ages with witches and commenting on how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. Everyone got lost up their own arseholes because the axiomatic level where they all started from was fundamentally wrong, based in alchemy and religion and hearsay and false precepts. You get just so many people now. It's like automatically you've got anything happens in the world, and you've instantly got the conspiracy guys who go 180 degrees, the flat earthers, the people who don't believe 9/11 buildings went down from a plane. All these things, there'll always be people who are totally against, or because they've got no vision at all, absolutely no vision. All they can do is look backwards all the time and never forwards. And a guy I follow called Sandy on YouTube put up a video the other day about people putting bad comments on there, and I'd say Sandy's one of the guys I most admire on YouTube. I've followed him for a couple of years now and just watched him develop his knife making capabilities, how he learned to fly in a paraglider, and his camping trips and walks up mountains. And even though he's slightly disabled from having a brain tumour at one time, and yeah, his face looks a tiny little bit disfigured, but at first you think, what's wrong with this guy? But then when you watch and listen to what he has to say and see what he's doing, that disfigurement becomes an absolute no-brainer. It doesn't exist anymore. It's just, once again, you're not thinking right-headed, wrong-headed thinking. Also, that's been my thinking for years. I can never understand why they haven't already covered the Sahara Desert in solar panels. It's the place in the world that gets the most sunlight. It's made out of sand. You can set up the solar panel factories on site, directly convert the sand to panels, and I think it's always the size of Wales, and anything in an example, it's the size of Wales. But they say if there's a solar station, an array of solar panels the size of Wales, that's enough to run the world. And you've just got to get the infrastructure in there. And I guess we're always fighting against the naysayers, even for something as simple as a YouTube comment, when somebody just, because they're bored, because they're thick, because they've got nothing better to do, because they're jealous, because they've got no life of their own, they put on some comment which either insults you physically, insults you for how you look, or insults you just for the sake of it. And these sort of people are the naysayers in a way. And when Elon Musk sent that car up into space, and so many left-wing people said, this is atrocious. How can this stupid billionaire, as millions of people are starving in the world, what right has this billionaire to send up a car into space? And the people are missing it completely. These absolute radical, militant, left-wing people, they don't get it at all. There's got to be some kind of progression, there's got to be something new, and they can't see it. Reminds me of the people throwing the clogs into the machines in the 18th century, the saboteurs throwing the sabots into the machines, into the wheels, because they saw that the machines were going to take over the jobs and they wouldn't be able to live, even though they were working 15 hours a day pulling out bits of fluff from inside dangerous machines. They'd rather do that than have a machine doing that job. And you can understand it because they didn't have any food. It's a wrong-headed thinking, but not only on their part, on the part of the bosses who own the machines, because they got all the profits then from the machines and nothing went to the worker. So nothing got shared out and things get worse and worse. And so then we've got two streams of wrong-headed thinking working, and we've got a wrong-headed way of thinking about the boss who just wants to have the machine so he can get all the profits himself, and the wrong-headedness of the people who are against the machines because they think they're losing the job. And that's when you get this multiple wrong-headed thinking. It just leads to absolute chaos and things like world wars. And if something happens, like eventually China or America or Russia and America go to war, that'll be because of an absolute clusterfuck of wrong thinking, wrong-headed thinking. No first principle thinking at all. Two stupid kids fighting in the playground, not knowing really why they're fighting, like two stags in a field. But the thing is, by two stags in a field fighting, they're not going to kill each other and everyone else as well doing it. So what can you do about it though? Can you just go on bike rides and moan on YouTube about it? Well, maybe that does help a little bit. Maybe me going on and talking about this will change one person's way of wrong-headed thinking and start making them think conscientiously and starting to think consequently, conscientiously, using the brain, thinking what's going to happen. And as well, there's a book I read years ago, it was called A New Model of the Universe by brain fart. Ouspensky is called, Russian guy, and his book A New Model of the Universe, I'd say about 75% of it is kind of rubbish, but there's about 25% of it that's not rubbish, which is about looking at things and thinking on all levels, thinking of macrocosm, microcosm, thinking on the atomic level, thinking on the world level, thinking on the space level, thinking on the time level, thinking on material level, thinking on mass, thinking on energy. And always have all these things going in your head all the time. You don't have to sit down and write a list of them. Your brain, once you start practicing this way of thinking, your brain loves to do puzzles and it does all that subconsciously. It's like driving the car. You don't have to think about it anymore. And suddenly you've got a clarity of thought in your head, which is always good to have, especially when you're getting older. Let's just take another example. I don't want to get on anyone's case or anything, but just go in the supermarket and look around and you see 70% of people are getting towards being obese. And you watch what they're buying great big packets of, great big plastic sags of protein-rich food and fat and sugary food and stuffing it down their guts because they've been watching adverts on telly that told them what to eat and it's cool to eat this stuff. For example, Coca-Cola. It must have been great when Coca-Cola first came out and it was had real cocaine in it. And then they got rid of the cocaine and they got rid of the sugar. And then some bright spark said, yeah, let's put some chemical in there that kind of tastes sweet, but it's not really sweet. And now everybody's drinking Diet Coke. And for me, that stuff, NutraSweet, aspartame, it's just poison, absolute poison. I have one sip of that stuff and I start feeling sick. Because it doesn't agree with me. Makes my ears whistle, makes me feel unvoid, not good. And maybe that's because I used to suffer from migraine quite badly and I only get about one attack a year now. But there's certain things, certain foods that I don't eat, otherwise I'm likely to get a migraine attack. Most of these foods that I don't eat is stuff that's been manufactured in factories. Like I don't ever eat margarine. If I eat margarine then my head starts hurting straight away. Nutmeg, I don't eat that because I know it's a spice, but that just affects me bad. Sausages like pepperoni sausages, fried up, or spam, anything like that, all them sorts of meats with lots of nitrates in. I eat that and my head starts thumping straight away. And I even get it with hand cream. My wife, is a continual argument I have with my wife because she tries all these different hand creams and body creams and there's always something in there. I don't know what it is. It's some distillation of an ester, probably from petrol or oil somehow. And it just, I can smell it in a million parts. Even if she's just gone upstairs and put a tiny dab on her hand, she comes down the steps and I can smell it from miles away and I say, what is that stuff you're putting on your body? Can anything smell so strong and be natural? And of course it's come out of a petrochemical factory. And that's that, you know, you can be all green and right on and doing all the right thing and then suddenly, just through a small act of ungood thinking, you screw it all up again because you've been told fairy stories and you haven't got rid of all the fairy stories still in your head. You still believe in ogres and ghosts and yeah, maybe that's me just being a bit eccentric. Yeah, going back to this guy P.D. Ouspensky. He wrote this book I was talking about was 1912, but even before that, you could read a lot of the books that H.G. Wells wrote. He also had that first principle thinking. If you read some of his old stuff, he predicted people sitting at home on Facebook, ordering goods from Amazon, living under like a cheese bell and living in this bubble of a world and everything being automated and brought towards you, sort of being fed like part of machine too. In Time Machine, it takes a idea on a bit further with the Morlocks and the Eloi. The Eloi are the degraded people up on top of the earth who live like lotus children, and the working class who were in the mines became predators on the Eloi. And it's a kind of a similar thing when you think about the privileged 1%, the privileged 1% billionaires all living on the people in paradise, people who are mesmerised on their phones. And I think it's your duty to try and think rationally, to try and think things through it on as many angles as possible, and not realising not everything is black and white, not everything has got two answers. There's myriads of answers, and you've got to find the statistic and find how many of them are relatively true, and then make your judgment on that, and not just on some kind of partisan lines. Like I was saying about the radical left automatically putting this Elon Musk guy, the billionaire, in with all the other billionaires like Donald Trump, who just do business by deals and stealing pennies off people, off millions of people. That's a different kind of a ball game altogether. But people have got to start realising there's distinctions and shades, just like taking a good photograph. So I was hoping the sky was going to clear today and come out for the sunset time, but it's not going to clear, it's just too misty and foggy.